I remember the day my little sister was born. A healthy 10-pound baby girl. That same evening, when my mother brought her home from the midwife clinic, she got herself out of bed and cooked dinner for us, despite her having gone through difficult childbirth. I'll never forget the look of exhaustion and anger on her face. Because instead of taking care of herself and her newborn, she pushed aside her own needs to fulfill her duties as a wife and mother. I see this exhaustion and overwhelm in a lot of women today, myself included. Societal norms and societal expectations, rather, and cultural norms shape both our internal and external pressures. Oxfam research shows that women and girls perform 76% of care work, unpaid care work worldwide. The economic value of that unpaid work is worth almost $11 trillion annually. Yet its true value is far greater because it forms the backbone of economies and societies, yet it goes under-recognized. I saw this firsthand when I was growing up. I would witness my brother getting paid for helping our father with work outside of the home, while my older sister and I were not paid anything for helping our mother with housework. So I assumed that my years in the workforce would mean that I would get paid maternity leave when I was expecting my first child. But to my surprise, my employer in Texas at the time did not offer paid maternity leave, and neither did the state. My only option was short-term disability, which I did not have because I wasn't disabled, I was pregnant. I just felt let down by the system, especially at a time when I needed my paycheck the most with a new baby. Just days after coming home from the hospital, I had the urge to start documenting a 24-hour account of all my domestic labor as a new mother. I posted the tallies up on social media and found that the hours of my domestic work widely outperformed my paid position during my unpaid maternity leave. Shortly after, like a year later, I noticed I was still losing my hair. And I made this sculptural piece that is symbolic of what women give up when we become mothers. Because it's not just our hair, it's sometimes our sense of purpose and identity, getting lost in the 24/7 work of keeping our tiny humans alive. Physically and mentally, it can take a woman up to 2 years or more to fully recover from the chronic sleep deprivation, the nutrient deficiencies, and the hormonal changes after having a baby. Motherhood brings immense joy, but also profound sacrifice, often that we acknowledge. This artwork is a colonial style blouse crafted from the dryer lint that I collected during my short time as a stay-at-home parent. Its resemblance to a classic maid's uniform points to the themes of servitude and the undervaluation of domestic work, unpaid domestic work. which is often not talked about and just kept behind closed doors, much like dirty laundry. This installation features dinnerware coated also in dryer lint, representing the guilt that is often associated to the social pressure of being seen as a good wife and mother. Its title, Domestic Economy, also examines the dual exchange between women's unpaid work at home for men's paid success in the workforce, which ultimately drives the economy. This piece started as a speculative question. If babies were grown instead of born to women, would this level the playing field in gender equality? This notion was rooted in personal experiences. 10 years ago, when I found out I was pregnant, just days before defending my master's thesis, I cried. Not because I was pregnant, but because I feared the impact it was going to have on my career. 8 months into my pregnancy, a university revoked their invitation for a campus interview after the hiring committee discovered that I was very pregnant. I even know female professors who avoid revealing that they are mothers for fear of being denied promotion. In a more recent position, I was denied reasonable flexibility to balance my full-time job and caregiving for my toddler and autistic child. In academia, the art world, and many other industries, women are still systematically stigmatized for being caregivers. This is the maternal penalty that women face every day.
Yeah.
After the birth of my second child, I experienced severe burnout because I realized that I wasn't just parenting, I was also project managing my household and my family while juggling a demanding full-time job outside of the home. So I documented for a month every aspect of my physical, mental, and emotional labor. And then I translated the words into binary code to create a visual representation of the often invisible work that women do at home. This is just for maybe about 2 days. The full document is quite extensive. And this piece, this is a still from a video where I positioned the binary code as if I am regurgitating this repetitive and overwhelming concept of invisible domestic labor. Because it's not just the obvious tasks of grocery shopping and laundry, but it's also the countless responsibilities that add up and take up our time, energy, and bandwidth. They can be as small as swapping out dirty towels or cleaning up some yucky stuff that somebody left behind, nobody else bothered to clean up. Or it could be as enormous as our mental load that falls on the default parent. The default parent is the one who knows which child has outgrown their pants, the one who keeps up with all the kids' activities and knows what's needed for each activity, and remembers to buy the gifts for the special occasions and the holidays, and remembers to stays updated with the schools and the teachers, and remembers and manages the doctor's appointments and knows what groceries are needed, does the online ordering, and even knows that there's enough toilet paper in the house. And then there is the emotional load. Constantly gauging the emotional temperature of every family member, often being the first responder to the needs, worries, and concerns of children and spouses alike. It's the parent who instinctively knows if something's wrong when their child's not home yet. It's the person who's always on. Often women feel overburdened, which can lead to resentment and relationship strain. And while I'm fortunate to have a helpful partner, I have also learned that asking for help is crucial, because even the most willing partner is not a mind reader. And I'm not discounting all the work that men do as well, but I just want to acknowledge all the seemingly insignificant tasks that women do behind the scenes, often without saying, to keep the family and home running. By recognizing these hidden burdens and communicating our needs, we create better balance and avoid overwhelm and resentment. However, I also found that, I actually found that my internal dialogue kept saying, I'll just do it myself, or I just already know how to do it. In recent decades, we have been told that to have it all, career and family, we must become superwomen. The superwoman syndrome is a term coined by Dr. Marjorie Hansen-Shevitz, where it's a pattern of behaviors and attitudes that women push themselves to excel in multiple roles, often at the expense of their own health and well-being. As young ladies, we are told that our periods are not an excuse for anything, no matter how painful they are. Because the strong woman is expected to soldier on no matter what, to compete in a man's world. This notion has dually oppressed women by balancing traditional roles at home with the pursuit of career success without sacrificing one for the other. However, as Professor Catherine Rottenberg has said, it is time that we shift from the superwoman ideal to the balanced woman ideal. I've actually observed that men tend to take care of their needs better. If they're tired, they take a nap or disconnect with sports and video games. While most women seem to push their energy's limits to keep the domestic wheel running, driven by the fear that if they don't, everything will fall apart. But we must stop overproducing as if we have to earn our keep, because this overproduction only leads to exhaustion, burnout, and even illness. This actually reminds me of the biblical story of the two sisters, Mary and Martha, where Martha worked really hard to prepare a big feast for Jesus, and Mary decided to sit and listen to his teachings. And when Martha complained that she was doing all the work, Jesus actually affirmed that Mary had chosen correctly. This shows us that sometimes the most important thing is not working ourselves to the bone, but doing what brings us joy and satisfaction. The National Institute of Health has actually found that the well-being of the mother is directly tied to the well-being of the entire family, and especially the positive development of the children. Yes. Since the beginning of civilization, we have relied on our support systems within our tribes and communities for help. However, since those supports are hard to come by, since the modern nuclear family has isolated us as individuals, asking family and friends for help is not always an option due to busy schedules or geographical locations, or simply grandma's not available. And I asked myself, why? Why is this happening, right? And it just comes right back to my upbringing, and where I see this also culturally too. As a child, I remember in my big Mexican family gatherings, witnessing the women in the family serve everyone else. They would first serve the men, then the children. Then once everybody had eaten, then they would sit down to eat in the kitchen where they lovingly prepared these meals. When I asked them why they did that, I was told not to question tradition, which of course that answer never satisfied me, because this dynamic might have made sense in the past when men worked mostly in hunting or farming, and women took care of the indoor work of child rearing, cooking and cleaning. But that's not reality for most people today, where women work equally stressful jobs, both physically and mentally demanding positions. And in this economy, both partners often need to work to make ends meet. Yet at home, we still carry that outdated rhetoric from past generations. Women are often, if household finances are shared, shouldn't housework and care work be shared as well? Women are often praised for being great multitaskers, but are we truly great multitaskers? Or have generations of conditioning just taught us to juggle everything? Or perhaps is weaponized incompetence, where one person will say they're just not good at something, so they're not asked to do it again. So does that mean that it's fair then for women to shoulder the extra domestic burden just because they are so-called good at it? This imbalance hurts men too, because it robs them of the opportunity to truly know their children and truly be present at home. I mean, how many men ask their wives where scissors and things are kept at home, or have no clue what shoe size their kid wears because she has always taken care of those details? Another dynamic that often happens also when children enter the picture is that women either leave the workforce or they reduce their work hours to take on more flexible positions, impacting significantly their lifetime earnings. Caregiving disruptions falls disproportionately on women, while men are rarely expected to adjust their work lives for caregiving disruptions. According to the U.S. Department of Labor, mothers lose about $300,000 in potential lifetime earnings due to caregiving disruptions. I recall even in a former position seeing thousands of dollars deducted from my paycheck when I went through my 5 days a year of sick leave in a matter of a few months to cover every time that my baby got sick. Despite being the most educated generation in history, women's participation in the workforce still remains low. And choosing to be a stay-at-home parent is perfectly valid, but we must acknowledge that there are risks associated to that decision, such as if the partner passes away or the relationship ends, then it leaves a lot of women with the all too common harsh reality of having to start over as single mothers struggling to provide for their families. And starting over is not as easy as it sounds, because employers do not like to see large gaps in resumes due to taking years off the workforce to caregive for your children. This is yet another maternal penalty for being a primary caregiver. Caregiving is incredibly valuable work. So why isn't it compensated fairly? Money is not unfeminine. Financial independence gives women choices. My own mother might have left an abusive relationship sooner if she had had the means, and potentially even breaking a cycle of generational trauma. I also noticed that girls are often steered into caregiving careers, such as education and healthcare. And while meaningful, these jobs are traditionally lower paying than the male-dominated fields of, so for example, finance, tech, and business. These patterns reinforce the underrepresentation of women in higher paying positions and leadership roles. And that's because society has not been built with women's needs in mind. But I believe it's time for change, because I believe that motherhood is the unfinished business of feminism. And while feminism is about advocating for women's rights and gender equality, in this wave, we're not asking for equality, but equity. Women bring unique strengths to this world, not lesser, just different. And we have distinct needs in order to reach our fullest potential. So what if we were to quantify even a portion of these values? What is the value of our invisible domestic labor? The value of our fortitude and resilience? The value of our wisdom and intuition? The value of our powerful ability to bear a life? Despite the systemic barriers that I have faced, motherhood remains the most rewarding experience of my life, because the love that I have for my two children is unlike anything else. I felt called to create artwork from my experiences, because I believe art changes culture, and culture changes society. So let's reimagine how much more we can achieve if women were not overburdened by the heavy load expected of them at home and expected from them, simply by asking for help from others and from their domestic partners to step up. Let's be conscious of our own internal drive to justify our existence through overproduction. Let's respect ourselves enough to ask for what we require, both at home and at work. Let's reimagine. What if society created those stronger structures to empower women to succeed? Systems like paid parental leave, menstrual leave that is separate from sick leave, additional family sick days for caregivers, financial compensations for stay-at-home parents, and subsidized childcare for working parents. These are key investments in building a stronger, more just, and more prosperous society for all of us. Because as Michelle Obama has said, the measure of a society is how it treats its women and girls. Because when women rise, societies thrive. Thank you.